Hi, my name is Matt Terrell, and welcome to our video on AI literacy, what it is and why it's important. So in the age of AI, we are getting a lot of fear, we're getting a lot of excitement, but the root that we really need to focus on is what do we need to know to navigate all of this safely, responsibly, and ethically. And that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. So we're going to start with an overview of just what is AI, get a feel for the landscape, and then move into what AI literacy is and what that might look like, and what we should be looking forward to as we move through this landscape in education. So at the basic level, AI is actually a really big umbrella topic. So the most simplified version or definition we can give of AI is just anytime we're trying to get a computer or a machine to think, learn, or act like a human. Now, this has been around for a lot longer than people think, but it is evolving at a very rapid rate. And generative AI is really kind of this latest evolution of AI that is dominating public mindsets and conversations right now because that is the newest form that we're seeing come about. So a brief history on AI, it actually, like we said, it goes back much further than people think, all the way back to the 1950s. So think back to Alan Turing and the imitation game and the Turing test and all of those things you may have been hearing about in relation to AI. But AI as an official term wasn't even coined until mid-1950s or so. And there was a lot of excitement, a lot of research, a lot of dollars going into the research. But then we hit a little bit of what was called an AI winter. So whether it was due to lack of computing power or just the approach to training AI, there weren't a lot of breakthroughs or a lot of return on that investment. So enthusiasm and dollars kind of declined. Now, later on, we start to see AI rekindle its excitement and its enthusiasm because the way we trained AI changed. So before it was very labor intensive to hand label everything and to pre-program these machines to do what we wanted them to do in response to different stimuli. But then there was this idea of machine learning that was developed. And what this allowed was for the researchers to put in a lot of unstructured data, and then the machine was able to learn and parse through that information on its own without as much time or effort on the part of the researcher. So this renewed interest gave rise to other forms of AI. This is where we start to see deep learning come about, which in its simplest explanation is just kind of building systems that are meant to mimic the way the human brain processes, stores, and recalls information. And it's because of that deep learning that we get to where we are today, where generative AI is really dominating the conversation. These are your chatbots like ChatGPT and Google Gemini, as well as image generators, video generators, and all kinds of new tools that have come about recently. So what's interesting, as far back as AI goes, your use of AI has actually been around much longer than you think. So previous to generative AI, the most popular AI systems people were interacting with were what we call adaptive or predictive AI systems. So if you've ever listened to Google Maps when it reroutes you because of traffic up ahead, that is not generating a new road for you to drive down. It's just taking in real-time information and adapting on the fly to have you get to your destination without getting caught up in the traffic. And then Netflix recommendations. Being able to watch a couple movies, Netflix learns and recognizes some patterns in your viewing history and then predicts what it thinks you might want to watch next. So that's what we call predictive AI. So those types of AI systems have been around for a while, integrated into the tools we use, but generative AI is unique in the sense that it's not regurgitating existing information, it's actually creating novel responses in real time. So when we talk about generative AI, this is the type of AI that can create content like text, images, audio, video, computer code. It's not just taking existing information and putting it before you. It is coming up with new combinations, new inspirations of images or audio or video based on the patterns that it has recognized in its training data. So just to kind of recap everything we've talked about so far, artificial intelligence overall is a very broad umbrella term that we use for any time we're trying to get computers or machines to think or act like humans. Now, machine learning entered the conversation a little bit later on, where these AI systems were able to learn and parse through the data on its own without the need of hand-labeled data sets. This in turn gave rise to deep learning, which is the way we structure these AI systems to mimic the human brain in terms of how it processes, stores, and recalls information. And rooted in that deep learning is where we get generative AI, this ability for the AI to draw on its vast knowledge base to come up with novel, new responses in real time. Now, what's interesting is even though generative AI is relatively new, November of 2022 was when it really kind of launched into the public sphere, with ChatGPT being browser-based and publicly available. It used to be that you had to go to a very specific browser, open up the website, and initiate an interaction with the AI system. Now, though, it's become much more ubiquitous. So it's not just on these standalone websites that you have to go to. It's built into our devices that we use. It's built into tools and platforms and apps that we have been using for a long time that now have these generative AI capabilities baked into them. And this kind of complicates things a little bit in a sense, because on the one hand, when you had to go to a specific website, there was a little bit more control, especially in the education setting. But now that it is baked into everything that we use and everything that we see, we need to be prepared whether we want to consciously use these systems or not. We are being exposed to them. So that's where we want to build up our AI literacy skills so that we can do that safely, ethically, and responsibly.